What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Universal Mastery, welcome back to my channel. What I do here is I break down the occult sciences and I break them down to a practical level so that you can use them and apply them in your day-to-day life and get real, actual results with your awareness simply by observing. Okay, so taking in this content and literally observing, you're gonna get results, okay? So let me create a context. First thing first, I wanna let you know who I am, just so you know that who you're getting this information from. My name is Jeremiah Schwartz, and I am a professional occultist. I am fully initiated in Kabbalah, being the top of the tree, the bottom of the tree, and the backside with the tunnels of Set. I'm studying when it comes to the archetypes in regards to the tarot, and I'm also studying when it comes to planetary energies in regards to astrology. Okay, that's just to let you know who I am and who you're getting this information from. Okay, so the topic that we're going to be going into in today's video is going to be definitely a very interesting topic. This is a fact. This is something that's, for anyone that gets into the occult, this is definitely going to come to the forefront at some point in time. This is something that I've been contemplating for years now, right? Like, this has been something that I've been wanting to dive deeper on for literal years. And a lot of people have been looking at this subject for years. Now, some people obviously are going to make more progress with the subject than others. Some people kind of stay in one paradigm with this subject, and then others really go deep. But first and foremost, I just want to say that this subject is one of those subjects that really does require a high level of experience with the occult to really know what you're talking about. And even then, this is this is one of those subjects where you are walking on a thin line between, you could say, conspiracies and reality. Okay, you've got to really know how to decipher. You have to be very patient, and you kind of have to interact with the universe, in order to really get the answers that are going to be based in reality in regards to this subject, okay? So the subject that we're going to be talking about in today's video is going to be around extraterrestrials, reptilians, and alien beings, in general. Different types of you could say planetary beings that exist within different planetary constellations, have their own galaxy, right? So in this video, I'm going to be covering my perspective when it comes to extraterrestrials. And I do want to say that, everything that I'm going to be sharing is something that I have spent a lot of time contemplating. I have dove pretty deep into the subject, especially with personal occult experience, having direct interaction with spirits, direct interaction with extraterrestrials, and just a really strong ability to be able to remote view and literally travel to these planes. So a lot of my information, and all my information that I'm going to be sharing in this video is going to be based around my own personal experience with this subject. And I'm going to say this right now, the reality is that my experience with this subject is probably going to be a little bit different than what you may have been used to hearing. So I just want to make that clear, and I will explain why that is once we get into the video. So yeah, without further ado, if you want to know a little bit more about the truth behind extraterrestrials, reptilians, and different types of alien species, right? We hear about all these different types of beings that potentially come down and visit Earth from different planets, different constellations, different galaxies, things of that nature. Then definitely stay tuned for the rest of the video. Okay, so let's go into it. So the first thing that I want to start with is, obviously, you know, what I've been doing on most of my videos is creating a context in the beginning. So the context that I want to first explain is the one where you have majority of people that are talking about extraterrestrials, reptilians specifically. These are the two primary ones. Like extraterrestrials, like you could think of as grays, like tall grays, reptilians. These are probably the two most common that we hear about, right? The reptilians and the grays, okay? And then, you know, and then there's the subject of just extraterrestrial in general, which just means alien in nature, right? So there's, and this is the reality. There are so many different types of life forms outside of Earth. There are so many different types of alien species that this subject is very, no one knows for sure how many different species there are. At least on Earth, no one knows. And I'll go as far as saying, you know, in the universe, I mean, you could only imagine, right? There are so many different types of life forms out there that I can guarantee you there is not one certain species that knows every single life form. I mean, it wouldn't make sense. So I just want to make that clear. There are many different types of beings. I mean, we hear about beings that are like cats, like they're like lion types. We hear about elves. We hear about, I mean, you name it. We have reptilians, you know, grays, Pleiadian, all kinds of beings. And the reality is that there is a lot of truth behind that. And it has been documented dating back thousands and thousands of years through many different cultures. Cultures that didn't even necessarily interact with each other had the same perspective and had extremely similar understandings of these other types of beings, which shows signs that there is for sure other life that exists outside in our universe. So primarily what I'm going to be covering in this video is the main extraterrestrial beings that as humans we want to draw our awareness to, mainly because they are the ones that are affecting us here on Earth primarily. Okay, so we're going to be talking about specifically the reptilians, and we're also going to be talking about a specific type of extraterrestrial. I don't necessarily know the name of their species, but I'm going to describe them as best as I can and give you an idea of what they look like, create examples for it, and also give you 3 primary constellations that they use to actually affect human awareness. So the first concept that I want to create is that there are a lot of people that get into this field of talking about extraterrestrials, aliens, reptilians, and obviously the first thing that happens is the person gets looked at as crazy, right? And a lot of the times, you know, there's actually a reason why people get looked at as crazy, but it's very subtle. So look, the reality is when people are talking about, yeah, like, you know, there's reptilians and, you know, reptilians are possessing the Rothschilds and they're possessing the, you know, the Clintons and the Democratic Party, you know what I'm saying? Like, the reality is yes, that does sound a little bit crazy, okay? And the idea that they're actually people that are able to shapeshift, right, and physically turn into reptiles is not necessarily true, okay? And I'm going to explain this because as a high-level occultist myself, I have had plenty of experience with this subject. Trust me, I've dealt with, you could say, dark matter energies that are directly connected to people that are known to be shapeshifters. So when you hear about David Icke, for example, speaking about Hillary Clinton and how she can shapeshift into a reptilian, and how when they go to their occult meetings that they're all changing into reptiles, right? I've dealt with the same dark matter energies that they're worshiping directly. And I've asked all these questions myself. I've gained the power of these dark matter energies. So I understand what's going on behind scenes. I understand what's actually taking place. And the reality is yes, energetically speaking, there is a you could say draconian type of technology, energy that does possess human beings and can possess human beings. And for a fact does possess people like Hillary Clinton, the Rothschilds, the Sanhedrins, Jeff Bezos's, Rockefellers, all of it, all these types of people. A-list celebrities. If you've ever looked it up before and you've seen a video of them doing, for example, like a live performance, if you've ever noticed, there are some where they actually catch the performer's eyes literally shifting into reptilian-like eyes. And it's been shown many times, like on a live video. It's not like it was edited, they went back and they, photoshopped the eye. It was recorded by multiple people in a live performance where people's eyes were literally, it would almost shift into some sort of reptilian looking eyeball. And although that's true, that doesn't mean that a person is a reptilian in regards to their species. So taking it back to what I was saying, there are constellations that are in the sky right now that fall under the draconian constellation, which is dragon energies, serpentine energies, right? And all you really want to know about that, to give you a brief understanding, is that these energies influence human awareness. And not only influence human awareness, but you can think of these constellations as being certain types of technologies to control Earth energies, okay? Technologies to be able to control reality here in the physical plane on Earth, okay? So to say that when somebody, has this draconian or reptilian energy flowing through them, to say that that person's a reptile or that person's evil because of that, that's false, okay? It's false because it's like the same concept as this idea of you can have a rocket launcher, and obviously a rocket launcher is a heavy-duty weapon that can do a lot of damage. So you could have someone with a rocket launcher that uses it and destroys innocent people and destroys everything that they don't like. And obviously, if you're going to be wielding a rocket launcher with the ability to do that amount of damage, you would need to have some sort of responsibility. Just like if you were to hand that to some 17-year-old, they're probably going to end up killing people that didn't deserve to be killed, or even themselves, because they don't know how to use it, right? So when you give a rocket launcher to a warrior or a rocket launcher to a trained fighter, and they have a specific target that they need to aim that rocket launcher at, and they need to take out that target, then they're going to use that rocket launcher in a more responsible way. So you can think of this draconian occult energy. I mean, it's coming from you could literally say it's coming from our galaxy, right? It's literally in the sky. If you look it up, there is 88 specific constellations that lie under the draconian current in general. And I recently just found this out in regards to the 88. There's 88 specific constellations that lie under this reptilian type of energy, okay? So you can think of this draconian current as being a technology, right? It's like it is an energy that has potential to control reality, but obviously you need to get to a certain point to be able to access it. And then from there, you need to have some sort of responsibility to know how to use it properly. Okay, that goes with anything when it comes to the occult field. So to say, you know, once again, drawing this back, to say that someone is being influenced by this draconian energy, first of all, to say that they're a reptile or they are the reptilian, that's false, because you're dealing with a human still. The person is still a human being. They're just being influenced by draconian energies. So for example, like when you see these A-list celebrities that, you know, there's videotapes of their eyes literally shifting colors and turning more into a reptilian eye, that's from a heavy possession of a reptilian. So their physical body is not going to be able to necessarily completely morph into a reptilian, because they're not a reptilian. They're still a human being. But you have to also understand this. Within the human being, we have a reptilian brain. And this is a very powerful aspect of our own consciousness. So when someone, for example, an occultist that uses ritual and uses occult energy, specifically coming from this constellation of Draco, this draconian constellation, that energy that's now influencing them primarily, if they can pull in enough power, they can get some pretty profound possession taking place. So when a celebrity, for example, when their eyes change, that will be the only thing that really shifts. It's not, they can't completely shapeshift, okay? You're not gonna see their face, right? There's like this idea where like people that are, these humans that are reptilians, like their skin peels off and then there's reptile underneath. That's not true. I'm telling you this right now, that is not true. And I will explain more in this video what is going on behind that and why people believe that, because it gets really deep and there's not a lot of people that know what I'm sharing, to be honest. And once again, keep in mind that I'm somebody who remote views. So I actually have direct interaction with these different entities, direct interaction with these different species, and I'm influenced by these same energies myself. So a lot of the times you're getting extraterrestrial information from people who are reading books, from people who have heard from other people or seeked out information from other people, and they're reading things in face value, right? They're not necessarily having direct experience, okay? They're basing a lot of their belief system off of conspiracies. So you want to be very aware of the difference between someone who's basing their ideologies off of books, off of other people's perspectives and opinions, and off of conspiracies, between the person that's actually a practitioner, someone who's a professional, you know, when it comes to the occult field, and someone who's actually able to remote view to these specific locations where there are these other extraterrestrial species. Okay, there's a big difference. So that's what you're getting from me. And that's why my information is going to be a little bit different, because I'm seeing what most people believe, right? So once again, the body is not going to just completely melt and transform. They're going to be this reptilian. Once again, if you can pull enough of that energy from these planetary constellations, you can have physical change to a degree. So the voice can change. That's a primary one that can happen. And the eye can change. Just like, for example, they say when someone is being heavily influenced by foreign energies or, you know, hidden energies, their pupils can be very big. Just like, for example, when you hear about people that are high on psychedelics, specifically mushrooms is a good example. People's pupils will get very big. Or LSD, people's pupils will be either known to get really big or really small. Well, when you're dealing, okay, let me explain this. The reason why the pupils will change is because they're opening their bioplasmic energy field, opening it up to different sources of energy, different currents coming from different constellations, right? This is all, we're talking about a very subtle occult thing here. That's the reason why their pupils will shift, okay? So very similarly, when you're dealing with you know, draconian energies, which usually only high-level occultists know how to access, because it comes from universe B primarily. When you are dealing with those energies, they can affect your eyes as well, just like what you see in some live performances of A-list celebrities. For example, there's one that comes to my mind. There's a Lil Wayne video where he's performing live, and he's for sure 100% involved in the occult, and he's dabbled with it before because of his music industry and how long he's been in the field. He's definitely had experience with it. That's a fact. Well, because he's attuned to it, and they use his music videos as rituals, especially in the past. This is an old video too that I'm speaking about. When he goes on to a live performance, one, he's already connected to the draconian energy, but two, now all the people in the crowd are basically worshiping him, giving him their energy, because they're like, Lil Wayne's here, oh my God, oh my God. And so basically what that's doing is that's pulling in huge amounts of that draconian energy. And then that is something that can trigger the pupil change, where it goes from literal human round pupils to literal slits in the eyes. That is a high level of possession, and that's a lot of energy coming in. And then once again, two very common things that will shift with possession is your eyes can shift and your tone of voice can shift. So there have been times where I've been involved in possession, and when I was doing it, you know, I was already a high-level occultist, and I was observing my own physical body while I was under possession. And there's this time specifically, my voice changed to such a tone, to such a degree, that it was no longer me speaking through my body. It was something completely separated from me, and it sounded, you know, quite honestly, it sounded scary, right? It sounded dark. It was like something you would see in a movie. And I've had direct experience with that. And obviously I wasn't afraid of it because I understood what I was doing and I was the observer. So I was very aware of how energy affects the physical body. So although my voice completely shifted, at the end of the day, I gave permission for that energy to come through me and speak through me. And I was in control of it. I was directing it. So I was controlling the words that were coming out of my mouth, but my tone was completely different. And it was like the way you hear me sound right now, it was completely different than how I normally sound. It sounded like, the best example I could give is like Batman, right? Like if you've ever seen the Dark Knight movie where Batman comes in and he sounds like that. Like my voice completely changed. And it wasn't like something that I was forcing myself to do. It was naturally happening to my voice. That's how deep of a level of possession I was in. And basically what I'm saying by a deep level of possession, all I'm referring to is a deep connection to these other energetic currents that are occult in nature and that are stemming from constellations within the universe, you know, the galaxy specifically, that are now influencing my physical body and allowing me to bring them down to the physical plane. So that's the first misconception that I want to spread, okay? I want people to recognize that just because someone is being influenced by certain types of energies, for example, draconian energies, that doesn't mean that the person is a reptile. Remember, if you are a human being, you're not going to be able to shed your skin and be a reptile. This is some Hollywood idea, and it actually goes a little bit deeper as to why people think that, and I will be explaining that. But I want that to be very clear, that on one end, if that happens to somebody, for example, it's happened to me, right? I've seen myself as a reptile before, but it wasn't me physically changing. Like it wasn't I didn't turn into a reptile, but I was projecting this reptilian image on myself but it was naturally happening. I wasn't like forcing it to happen. I remember I was looking at myself in a mirror, and I seen my eyes change into reptilian eyes, right? And then even in my remote viewing, I saw myself as a literal reptilian. And this was kind of early on in my initiatory phase within the occult, and that was very fascinating to me. But once again, one of the most fascinating parts about it is the fact that there's all these people that think that, like, oh, you know, if you're a reptilian or you have these reptilian experiences, then you are a reptile and that you're evil, right? And like, that's not true, but I'm not going to disregard the fact that, you know, draconian energies, right, in the wrong hands, they can be very dangerous, and they can harm a lot of innocent people, and they can cause a lot of destruction. And the reality is, you know, for the past 400, 500 years, who have had access to exclusive knowledge and information that the mass collective hasn't had access to? Well, let's take a logistical look at the reality behind the mass collective, and we can point our finger at the Rothschilds, the royal families, the inner Jewish rabbis being the Sanhedrins, the Jeff Bezoses, the Rockefellers, and then below them as puppets we have the outer Jewish rabbis, we have the occult orders, Golden Dawn, Freemasons, Knights Templars, OTO, Rosicrucians, you name it. A-list celebrities that are under the occult orders. So it's this information and these energetic currents can be accessed by people that are irresponsible and can also be accessed by people that are responsible. For example, I've had direct access to these same energies, and I use them 110%. I use them for destructive purposes, but I'm using them with a different intent than the average person that has been using them in regards to these groups of people that I just mentioned, right? They're using it to control the world, and they don't care what they do to control the world. They're possessed by chaos primarily, so they're trying to cause as much destruction and chaos as they can, as long as they have enough control to remain at the top of the pyramid, right? To have the most money, to make sure they're gaining complex number energy, to make sure that they're in their positions of power. And then people like me come along, and there are a lot of us that are starting to come out, where we are taking over the technology, where we are being drawn towards deeper occult initiation that lead us to these same draconian energies that have previously been hidden and for sure have been used on the mass collective. So in other words, they work. They are very powerful. Okay, you can get very powerful results from them. But once again, now there's people like myself that said, okay, fuck the bullshit. I'm not going to go to any orders. I'm not going to trust the Knights Templars. I'm not going to trust the Golden Dawn. I'm not going to listen to Aleister Crowley. I'm not going to listen to Kenneth Grant. You know, I'm going to study them. I'm going to gain the information they have. But I'm going to go straight to the source of the dark matter energies myself. So I'm going to approach Lilith. I'm going to approach Nimmo. I'm going to approach Samael. I'm going to approach Baal. I'm going to approach Adramlech. I'm going to approach Lucifer. I'm going to approach Asmodee. I'm going to approach Azazel, Astaroth. I'm going to approach Lucifuge. I'm going to approach Beelzebub. And I'm going to approach Moloch and Satan myself. And I'm going to talk to all of them. And I'm going to say, I want all of your power, to all of them. And I'm also going to tell them I'm going to do whatever it takes to gain that power. Because I'm ruthless. And I want to take over. I see how society is being run right now. And I know there's an underlying sinister current. And quite frankly, I'm tired of living in a matrix that's controlled by these parasitic, chaotic human beings that have lost themselves a long time ago. And I want to take over the entire system, and I want to be now in a place of power and rule over everything, and obviously create a mass collective that's going to be in more alignment with evolution, because obviously that's going to be better for me, right? I don't want to live in a world that's controlled by these parasitic people. Once again, like, I want to live in a world that is in alignment with evolution, because that makes me feel better. It's more fun for me, and it, you know, it gives me more power, and I will be, you know, in more control. You know, it's what happens when you move from the darker age of evolution into the lighter age, the golden age. Okay, there's a shift of power. So yes, so that was the first context that I wanted to create, is that it's like the rocket launcher analogy, right? It's, you have to be responsible with the power, but just because you're influenced by the power, the draconian energy, reptilian-like energy, does not make you evil necessarily, and does not make you, or does not mean you are a reptilian human, meaning you are able to transform your physical body completely into a reptile. That's not what that means. What it does mean, though, is that on the astral plane, so when we're talking about time-like space, and we're talking about remote viewing, yes, you can definitely shape-shift into a reptilian. So when I imagine my remote viewing body, I have reptilian qualities to my remote viewing body, because I've tapped into draconian technology in regards to astrology and these draconian constellations that have allowed me to access that ability to shapeshift my remote viewing body, known as my daemon, into a reptilian, which gives me certain types of reptilian powers in regards to that technology, okay, from those constellations. So this is where the question comes. Okay, so Jer, if what you're saying is true, and, you know, these people that are elites within our government, these inner bloodlines and all that stuff, if they're not really reptilians, then are you saying that reptilians aren't real? Are you saying that they don't exist? No, that's not at all what I'm saying. They definitely do exist. They are real. I do believe they have definitely come to Earth at some point in time. I definitely think there may be some on Earth right now. Obviously, there's not a lot, because we would probably know or have seen some by now. But I know for a fact they are a real species. Reptilian is a real species, and they do have their own civilization. They have their own planet that has its own structure to it, its own energetic properties, and that's where a lot of these draconian constellations, you know, come from as well, right? Like, there are different civilizations with different life on it, and one of those civilizations is reptilian in nature. And even amongst reptilian civilizations, right, there's different types of reptilians. So it goes deep. Just like we're human beings, but we have a reptilian mind. Like, there's a literal reptilian aspect of our brain. That's why when you talk, oftentimes if you're in touch with the reptilian side, you go like this. You do this thing with your tongue. Have you ever seen somebody do that before they talk? They're like, usually it's before they say something intelligent too. They'll go, and then they say it. Okay, if you pay attention to people around you, people that are in touch with that reptilian, draconian side of themselves, they will do that often. And once again, that just proves that that as human beings, which is our own unique species, in my opinion, one of the most important, and if not the most important, we have a draconian aspect to our being, right? So I believe at some point, and this is where maybe the whole Anunnaki idea comes into play. I'm not going to speak on Anunnakis because I haven't unpacked it yet, so I don't want to speak on something I don't fully understand yet. But I believe with the whole Anunnaki idea, where there was a species at some point in time, extraterrestrial in nature, maybe reptilian, who knows, came to Earth and did some genetic manipulation or genetic splicing. in regards to creating a being, right? Maybe influencing the human being to a degree. I don't know. But I do know for a fact that, you know, at some point in our history, there was a lot of reptiloids, right? We have the whole age of dinosaurs, okay? So if you go back far enough, I mean, I'm sure there was a point in time where reptilian beings may have lived with human beings, or maybe have at some point in time have dominated Earth, meaning Earth may have primarily been reptilian in regards to reptilian-like humanoid beings. And then maybe at some point in time, the technology shifted and there was something that came along. This is where the Anunnaki theory comes in, where something may have came along and altered genes in regards to high levels of technology, where they could do genetic splicing, where you take the genes from one species of something and mix it with the genes of another thing and then produce an offspring. And maybe that's how the human being was formed, from maybe starting from some sort of reptilian being. Who knows, right? These are things that we don't 100% know, but it can date back so far, right? So we just want to entertain the idea and let it sit, and we'll allow time to tell. You know, we'll allow time to give us the answers on some of these things, because we don't need to understand it fully now. We can let the idea sit and let it come back when the time is right, so that we can be grounded in what we understand. So with that being said, yes, reptilians are a real species. They definitely do exist. Obviously, Earth right now is primarily inhabited by human beings. It is dominated by human beings. We are a very important species, and reptilians predominantly have their own civilizations, their own life forms, and their own planets, you know, in their own galaxy. Okay, they have their own thing going on. Okay, and there are once again, there are different types of reptilians too. Different species of them. So with that being said, I'm not going to really go into the grays right now, but based off of what I said with reptilians, I want you to draw the idea that it's similar with the grays, meaning you hear about the grays, you hear about the Pleiadians, and you know, all other types of beings, right? It's similar with them too, right? These are real species. These are real humanoid-like beings that have their own planets, different species amongst themselves as well, that very well have come to Earth at some point in time and may come to visit every now and then to observe for their own reasons. I can't fully tell you why, but they are their own beings as well. But once again, as humans, we dominate Earth, and Earth is primarily inhabited by us, right? And we are powerful beings, okay? I want you to understand that. So when it comes to the Pleiadians, when it comes to the Greys, they are more so locked into their own realities, their own planetary, you know, you could say experience, right? They're doing their own thing. So with that being said, I think I covered some important aspects of this subject. Now I'm going to explain what's most important to understand when it comes to extraterrestrials, okay? So this is where it gets important to understand. So out of all these different species, right? The reptilians, the Greys, the Pleiadians, whatever else you can name, okay? There is one extraterrestrial species that is primarily, you could almost say, the enemy of most of these other species, and us especially. So there is a extraterrestrial being that is insectile in nature. So rather than being reptilian, they're insectile. So insects, Okay, sorry, my camera ran out of space right when I was going into this species, which tends to happen every time you talk about them. Every time you bring awareness to this certain species, things usually start to manifest that try to stop you from speaking about it. So just want to make that clear. But it is an insectile type of species that has a planet and a universe that is very similar to Earth, except it's opposite. It has opposite parallels. So for example, what I mean by that is, here on Earth, humans dominate, okay? When we look at the lower hierarchies of our reality in regards to life forms, we usually look at insects as being one of the lowest on the chain, okay? Most of us see it as that, right? Insects are the lowest. So like, for example, you're walking about your day. You're on a sidewalk. You see, you may see like an ant, right? That's running across the sidewalk. There are many people that walk and they don't give a fuck. They'll just step right on the ant, right? They don't care. Like, it's just like, oh, it's just an ant, whatever. Well, when you're walking and you come across, let's say, a dog, or let's even start lower, you come across a frog, let's say a frog, and you see it, you're probably not going to want to step on it, right? You're probably going to try and avoid it, okay? Most likely, okay? So we're seeing a little bit of a hierarchy. So the ant gets stepped on, most likely. Usually you're not even aware of it. You don't even pay attention. Then there's a frog, and you try to avoid it. Okay, cool. Okay, let's move up higher. Let's say there's like a squirrel. Okay, you're definitely like not going to try and run over the squirrel or step on the squirrel. I mean, obviously the squirrel will probably get out of the way before that even happens, but let's say hypothetically the squirrel was just hanging out. You would not want to step on it. I can guarantee that. People will try to step around it. Okay, going up a little bit higher. Let's move up to a cat, right? Like if you see a cat on the ground, you're definitely going to want to not step on it. I mean, you're going to avoid it. You might even try to pet it, okay, right? Like the hierarchy is getting higher. Okay, let's say it's a dog. Same thing. You see a dog in the middle of the sidewalk, you're going to walk around it, or you may try and pet it. You may smile and look at it and say, oh, it's so cute or whatever. And then you just keep going higher and higher and higher and higher. And then, you know, it goes up and up and up and up. So in regards to the hierarchy, we can see that insects are one of the lowest on the hierarchy. So in this other dimension, or I should say this other planet that has different dimensional properties than Earth, it's similar to Earth, but it's opposite in parallels, meaning on that planet, insects rule. And it's similar to Earth in regards to scenery and environment, but it's not as solid as Earth. So Earth is very solid, meaning like my hands don't go through each other. In this other planet, time-like space is stronger, so you are able to change reality from imagination or from tapping into your remote vision. And the species inhabiting this planet are insectile. So they come from a different mentality than human beings. So what makes us different here on Earth as human beings is we have the ability to love and hate at the same time. So I can literally love something. For example, I can love my partner, but I can hate that she doesn't show up on time. For example, if we went out to get dinner, I'd be upset. Like, hey, we were supposed to meet at this time. What happened? And I hate that, right? I can hate that. But I love her, but I hate it. So I can hate and love at the same time. You can too. That's what makes us different as human beings. And that attributes to why there's so much solidity here on Earth, why things are so solid. And Earth is unique in that way, and that makes us very powerful. That makes our energy field very powerful in nature. But in this other planet, where it is primarily run by insectiles, although it is very similar to Earth, but it is very much more malleable, meaning physical reality is not as solid as it is here. Things can pass through, things can shift based on visualization in that planet. And these beings do not have the ability to love and hate at the same time. They either love completely or hate completely. And they're more so programmed into a hive mentality where they serve the ultimate power. So there will be hierarchies within this planet that have specific roles that they play, and that is completely what they're focused in on, and that's all they care about, is add to their role, play their part, build on top for the king or queen. So similar to like a beehive, right? It's an insectile hive mind mentality where all the worker bees are constantly going out and they're bringing back to the queen. They're adding to the kingdom or the creation where the queen rules, and all the worker bees are doing their role. They're all playing their different roles. The female bees are laying more eggs. They're producing more offspring, and then the males are out gathering all the pollen, bringing it back, creating the beehive, and all these things, or bringing the tools or the requirements needed to build the beehive. They all have their roles, and they all play their roles, and it's all primarily under the rulership of the queen bee, like primarily. So this other planet has very similar mentality to this. But also, because they are not as solid, and because they don't have a physical plane that's like our physical plane, they have access to very high levels of technology that we don't have. Okay? So not necessarily that we don't have the ability to tap into, but more so that we don't have awareness of as a mass collective. So these insectile beings understand constellations. They understand the science of manipulating energy when it comes to bioplasmic energy fields, when it comes to souls, soul energy, when it comes to soul fluid. They have high-level knowledge on how to manipulate these certain types of energies to produce outcomes. And one of the main things about these beings, these insectiles, which you can imagine look like similar beings as humanoid praying mantises. For example, if you've ever seen the movie Alien, okay, Alien, where they run through tunnels and they have a hive mind, that's literally what they look like. They look very similar to that. Not as necessarily scary, not as creepy as in the movie The Aliens, but they look similar to that, okay? Insectile, praying mantis-like beings. And they're not, remember, they're not as solid as we are, so it's not like you can punch them and they'll feel it, right? It would actually pass through. Like, if they wanted to do what I'm doing right now and punch through their hand, they could pass through the hand if they wanted. That's how their reality works. It's less solid than our reality. In our reality, it's always solid. And this is a very potent aspect of our reality that other species admire. So, rolling off of that, that is a major reason why this primary species of extraterrestrial likes to take advantage of Earth energies and mankind. So as a high-level occultist myself, I have to ask myself the question, okay, I look around as a scientist and a realist, and I obviously see that there is chaos on Earth, I obviously see that the average human being is being completely ran by a parasitic entity that exists on the top of their head, and it completely controls their awareness. I can remote view and see this as well. I can see from observing different authors, like in regards to Carlos Castaneda, they talk about mud shadows, right? Which is an energy field, which is brown, that literally exists in the top region of the human's energy field, that the ancient shamans were able to perceive as well. Well, from listening to that in the book and being able to remote view, I started to recognize I can see the same exact thing. So if I'm going to be a realist and a scientist, I have to come to some conclusion that there's something that is off about Earth and its mass collective. It seems to be like there's something in the nature of mass collective harvesting that's taking place. So obviously, the first conclusion that I need to draw is, where could that be coming from? So I'm going to trace the roots. So I'm going to say, okay, and this is something that I've spent years trying to dissect, and this information that I'm sharing with you has come from years of study and has come from years of experience. So this isn't something that I just, oh, I figured it out, right? This is years. I mean, I'm talking like 20 years, okay? Actually, no, not 20 years. I'll say 15 years. 15 years. So with that being said, I had to start tracing things back. So at first it started with religion. I was like, you know what? I'm seeing this like this indoctrination taking place within religion. And maybe there's something extraterrestrial that could potentially be connected to religion, that's trying to promote certain ideologies and belief systems that allow the human awareness to be suppressed so that it can be harnessed and fed upon. Okay, so that was the first thing. Religion. Okay, well, what's behind religion? Huh. Okay, well, the news, politicians, A-list celebrities, right? Like, I'm seeing these politicians, these A-list celebrities promoting very symbolic and satanic symbolism within their whatever it is that they're sharing. Like when it's on the news, it's always fear, fear, fear. And it just, you know, it always sounds like they're saying something that is not them saying it. It just seems like they're being controlled to say something. And it's like, I'm like trying to figure out, like, where are you coming from? Why are you saying these things? Where's the root of this? And then when it comes to A-list celebrities, why are you putting so much satanic symbolism in your music videos? Why are you dressing in this way? Why is your message coming out to be this? Why is your message behind your music geared around fear, perverted sex, killing, and all of these things that are very intertwined with what I'm seeing on the news? That's why I'm classifying these two groups together. Okay, so then I drew that connection. Okay, so let me go back farther then. Occult. This is around the time when I got into the occult. Okay, well, it seems like they're doing these things from an occult influence, which means hidden. So let me dive into the occult. Okay, now I'm coming across Aleister Crowley. Now I'm coming across Kenneth Grant. Now I'm coming across all the occult orders associated with it. The Golden Dawn, the Rosicrucians, the Knights Templars, the OTO, the Freemasons, and many more. Coming across these orders now. Okay, so is it the orders that are the roots, right? Like, this is where I was. Like, and okay, maybe I found the root. Maybe it's these occult orders that are the mysterious people, the wizards and witches that are using black magic and Satanism. Maybe they're the ones that are influencing all of the mass collective to act and operate in this way that is essentially shelling their awareness to be fed on. So maybe it's these inner orders and these occultists that are maybe being inhabited by extraterrestrial entities. Interesting. Well, guess what? I went deeper because it doesn't stop at these occultists. It doesn't stop at these orders, these occult orders, these secret occult orders. It goes deeper. So let's trace it back. Where are these occult orders getting their information from? Where are they getting all of their Kabbalistic, ritualistic, satanic, black magic knowledge? Where is this coming from? How do they know about Kabbalah? Okay, well, let's go deeper. Well, it seems like a long time ago when it came to John Dee and Edward Kelly, it seems like John Dee and Edward Kelly having a huge occult influence on our today's occultists and the orders. It seems like they were serving the royal family. So essentially the royal family back in those times, this is around the 1500s, the royal family was paying them to do rituals on their behalf. And we're telling them, hey, if you can manifest this or if you can create this using your magic, using your necromancy, using your black magic, using your knowledge on planets and astrology and all these things, then we will pay you and we'll make sure that you're rich. Okay? And if you actually study both of these occultists, Edward Kelly and John Dee, they didn't live up to the prophecy that they said would be for Edward Kelly and John Dee. So the royal family actually didn't follow their end. They pretty much had them create what they wanted them to create and then essentially threw them to the dogs and said, all right, well, we got what we wanted. Bye. Essentially. So I'm seeing something. The royal family back in the 1500s seemed to be doing some sinister things in regards to, I mean, hiring these mainstream at the time, not mainstream, but the most popular and known professional occultists. They hired them to create reality for their family and their bloodline. So I'm seeing a connection between occult and the inner bloodlines. So let's look at these inner bloodlines. And even the idea that these bloodlines gave them this promise, hey, we're going to make sure you're rich, we're going to make sure you're taken care of, we're going to make sure everything's going to be great for you as long as you can manifest our future for our family and our bloodline using your high-level magic. And the fact that they threw them away once they were able to step into the manifestation of their new future, the fact that this royal family threw John Dee and Edward Kelly to the side and didn't give them what they said they would have, shows that there's a level of synastry within that royal family. So let's trace the royal family up to today. So now we have the royal family in regards to the queen, prince, right? The royal family in our today's time. Then we have the Rothschilds that are directly associated with the royal family and have inner bloodline ties. The Rothschilds, some of the richest people on earth currently. Then we have the Sanhedrin Jews, which are directly connected and interconnected with their bloodline once again. The Jeff Bezoses, which are very close friends with this inner royal family bloodline. Then we have the Rockefellers, which have lots of deals, very close relationships, very close with these inner royal bloodlines. So I'm starting to see a pattern because it seems to be that all of these other outer occultists that claim to be so powerful and all these other orders, it seems to be like they're getting a lot of their information from higher level occultists that are directly associated with this inner royal Jewish bloodline family. Okay, this is my observation. This comes from a lot of research and a lot of studying and even remote viewing and experience with these spirits myself. Okay, so I'm seeing this connection. So it's looking like the royal family, they're the closest thing to the root at this point. So now that I've traced it back to these royals, I have to ask myself the question, okay, maybe they are the ones that are being inhabited by extraterrestrial entities, being these Insectiles. Maybe they're the ones that are being possessed or primarily influenced by, mainly because if these Insectiles in their own species are smart and they understand energetic technology in a much deeper way than what we do right now to our current awareness, maybe they understand that in order to get maximum yield from the energy that is most needed on Earth for them, so the energy that they feed on, these Insectiles, is bioplasm, specifically the bioplasmic energy field. Okay? Because that's what gives them solidity from wherever they're at. It's what produces that solid energy that they're lacking from their species. So if they're smart, then they're going to want to directly influence the richest people on our planet to cause the most influence from them being influenced to spread across our society. So let me try to help you understand what I'm saying. So obviously the royal family has massive influences on our mass collective. If you traced all these root connections that I just shared, we have the media, we have TV shows, we have movies, we have all the phones, apps, commercials, sporting events, gridworks in cities. They're all under the control of these inner Jewish rabbis, the royal family, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and Jeff Bezoses. People in this nature, they're all under that influence if you trace the roots all the way back. So if there was an extraterrestrial species that was smart enough to know how to manipulate energy in its most effective way, they're going to want to target those most influential people to the mass collective. So essentially what that means is they're going to want to directly possess those inner Jewish rabbis and those inner royal family bloodlines. And if they can possess them, then they can start manifesting, they can start creating circumstances here on Earth that are going to allow maximum yield for these alien insectile entities back where they're living and back where they're from. So they're going to be able to harvest energy easier if they can produce the mass collective to be completely controlled by people that are being possessed by these alien entities. Hopefully you're able to put the pieces together here. So essentially what I'm saying is that these alien entities are possessing these inner royal bloodlines. Okay? I'm going to do a part 2. This video is getting long. I'm going to do a part 2 on it. I'm going to do a part 2. If you want to see a part 2 of this video, if you stayed this long and you want to hear a part 2 and you want to see how much deeper it goes, then definitely let me know. Drop down in the comments, let me know, because I'll uncover it. I'll go deep with this, okay? Once again, there's not a lot of people sharing knowledge on this subject, but this is a very profound, powerful subject to understand. So I will make a part 2, and I will make it so that I fully explain what's going on. So far, I uncovered about 1/2 of what's going on, okay? In regards to extraterrestrials, and specifically this one species that is insectile in nature, and why they harvest human energy. So if you want to know how deep it goes, and to know a little bit more about it, then please drop down in the comments and let me know that you want to see a part 2, because I will record the part 2 right after this. Other than that, I'm going to leave it there. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video so far. Hit the notification bell. Also hit the subscribe button, because I post videos as often as I can, and I love to see my subscribers shoot through the roof. And if you would like to gain access to exclusive content, which is not on my YouTube channel, you can hit that drop down in the description. It says my Patreon at the top. Click that. You can request to join any of the 4 tiers. I have 4 tiers altogether. So I have exclusive content on there in the nature of actual occult practices that I teach you how to do on camera, so that you actually perform it properly and get results with it. For example, I have a video on how to do an invocation, which is literally invoking a spirit to come to you using 2 important techniques to do that. And then basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking on the attributes and the energy from that spirit and pulling it into your own energy field, which gives you the power of that spirit, which is going to increase your psychic power. It's going to increase your psychic receptibility, and it's also going to increase your psychic protection at the same time. Okay, very fundamental and valuable for anyone that's beginning to get into the occult field and, you know, starting to take it seriously. Okay, so I have videos on my Patreon that are in that nature. Then the other bit are going to be in regards to Kabbalah, which is the underlying system of spiritual initiation and spiritual self-development in its totality. So that's also very valuable. I break down the entire tree of life from the Sephiroth all the way down to the Qliphoth, giving you the associations of the spheres, the attributations, the spirits that are connected with them, and my own personal experience having initiated through the spheres myself. Very valuable information. So in order to gain access to this exclusive content, you have to at least be a tier 2 member or up. In order to be a tier 2, it costs $9.95 a month. So if you were to do the math, that'll literally come out to less than $1 a day. So realistically speaking, there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be able to afford that with the value that I have on there. That's a fact from me to you. And as you go up in tiers, the benefits increase as well. So with the 4th tier, there is going to be an actual service that I perform for you. It's called the Vampire Service, which basically means that I am using high-level occult magic to literally change your energy field, change your entire energy body, to rather than giving energy to chaos and losing energy like that, like the average person's energy field does, I'm going to shift it, pretty much invert it, so that you feed off of chaos. That's why it's called the Vampire Service. Your energy field is then going to be able to suck in chaos and use it to empower yourself to, you know, manifest more in your life. Okay. And you're going to be able to see a video at the end of this video that's going to appear as a recommended. In that video, I explain everything that happens in the Vampire Service if you want to know a little bit more about that. So, yeah, there's that tier. So with that being said, I would love to give a special shout out to the highest tier members of the Patreon. Their names are all going to be mentioned in the parentheses right below that Patreon link in the description. So huge shout out to you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Next shout out is to all of my Patreon members in general. I'd love to give a special shout out to all of you for taking your knowledge and your studies to that next level. And then third shout out to all of my YouTube subscribers. I appreciate all of you. Okay. Next thing I'd like to say is check out the second link below. If you would like to book your own personal tarot card reading with me, where I break down a very subjective and personalized reading that most people don't give in regards to, I break it down in a very deep way, not just giving you the normal traditional understanding, but giving it to you in a way that is, once again, very connected to what you're going through and what you're wanting to know. Also sharing with you what my spirit, what my spirit and intuition wants to tell you. So I'm not going to be holding back, and I'm just going to be giving it to you exactly how I feel like I need to, tell you. So it's going to be present, near future, and long-term future. And the way I do the reading is I do it on my own time, okay? And then once it's done, I record a video on my phone. And then I record it, breaking it down step by step from each card. And then once it's finished, I send you the videos to your phone. So you have your own personalized individual reading. That you can literally go over as many times as you need to really understand it. So that's how I do my readings. And the only thing that I request at the end of that is your own personal feedback. Okay, so other than that, I'm going to wrap it up there. Once again, if you would like to book that reading, you can book it at the second link below. And yeah, that'll be it. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day or night wherever you are. And once again, if you want to see the part 2 of the extraterrestrials in this video, then please drop down in the comments and let me know. Okay, once again, leaving it here. Peace.